He was a brilliant pilot, a formidable Jedi, and a symbol of hope for the new Jedi Order. This is a story of immense potential, personal sacrifice, and a destiny cut tragically short. This is the legend of Anakin Solo, a hero forged in war, bound by duty, and remembered for the choices that changed everything. Anakin Solo was born 10 years after the Battle of Yavin in the space station world of Nespis 8. He was the third child of Han and Leia Solo. Anakin was brought into the galaxy just a year and a half after his older twin siblings, Jason and Jaina. Han initially wanted to name the boy Han Solo Jr., but Leia, however, had a different plan. She chose to name the boy after his maternal grandfather, Anakin Skywalker. It was a bold choice. Leia hoped to redeem the name of Anakin, and in doing so face her own fears of Darth Vader by seeing in her son what her own father could have been. A decent amount of weight had already been placed on his shoulders just by having that name. Anakin was born into a time of great uncertainty, not only for his family, but for him as well. A time where the galaxy was still struggling to rebuild. The New Republic had worked hard to establish itself as the ruling government, though it came with a burden of constant threats from resurgent Imperial forces, led by none other than a reborn Emperor Palpatine. The chaos would not spare even the youngest of members of the Solo family. Still just an infant, Anakin's life had already been threatened before it truly began. The machinations of the current reborn Emperor had led him to target the young Anakin's body as a vessel for his own consciousness. However, before he could succeed, Palpatine would be shot and killed by Han Solo just before he could possess his son. Though his physical body would fall lifeless to the ground, the Dark Lord's essence refused to fade, still making its way towards Anakin. But before the Dark Spirit could ever reach him, Anakin was given by Leia to the Jedi Knight and Patajayos Bran, who would go on to intervene, shielding Anakin from Palpatine's dark essence. This would go on to be Bran's ultimate sacrifice, giving his life so that Solo could continue his. The first year of Anakin's life would be spent away from his parents on the remote planet of Anoth, which was an isolated system which his uncle Luke Skywalker and New Republic Admiral Jael Akbar had specially fortified to protect the Solo children. During this time, the young Anakin would be tended by nanny droids as well as his mother's best friend Winter, with Han and Leia visiting every few months. At first, Anakin had lived on Anoth alongside Jason and Jaina. However, once the twins had reached the age of 2, they would go on to live with their parents on Coruscant. Though that would all change come the year 11 ABY, where an Imperial strike team would be organized and led by a human male known as Fergan, which was the ambassador of his home planet of Karita. The strike team would invade Anoth with the intent to try and kidnap young Anakin. In an effort to protect the youngest Solo, Winter was able to fend off most of the invaders by triggering the base's defenses and taking out any remaining Imperials on her own. Eventually, news of Fergan's plan had reached Leia and Akbar, who would arrive in time to save Anakin from the ambassador's efforts. This abduction attempt would be the last straw. Anakin would go on to live on Coruscant with his parents and siblings, finally getting the chance to grow up alongside his brother and sister. Much of the Solo children's childhood years would be spent under the care of C-3PO, as help for Leia, who had since become overwhelmed with both being a mother and with her involvement with the fledgling New Republic. Though once Han and Chewbacca had returned from a previous excursion, they would both aid in the raising of the Solo kids. The adventures of young Anakin had already begun at an early age, much alike his brother Jason and his sister Jaina. During the year 14 ABY, during the Empire Reborn movement, Anakin and his siblings would become victims of a plot involving yet another kidnapping. The architect of this plot would be known as Lord Hethrir, who took particular interest in the Solo children and their Force powers. The Imperial Procurator of Justice looked to take advantage of the children's sensitivity to the Force, and even intended to sacrifice young Anakin to a trans-dimensional being by the name of Waru, in the hopes of gaining the creature's help. However, Anakin's parents along with his uncle Luke had succeeded in rescuing the children, with Hethrir being destroyed by the very creature he had sought help from. During his youth, Anakin often had recurring nightmares of his grandfather. At a young age, he would find it difficult to separate the heroics of Anakin Skywalker from the atrocities of Darth Vader. With this happening, he would collapse under the weight of his name. Anakin would not confide in Leia enough to confess his nightmares, though Leia opted to send Han instead to speak with his son. During that very conversation, Anakin would ask his father what happened to Luke's hand. Han seized the opportunity to rid Anakin of his nightmares of Vader, whilst at the same time explaining to his son what happened to Luke's hand. Han would go on to tell his son about their adventures during the First Galactic Civil War, but instead of including Luke in the story, he would go on to use Luke's hand instead, using it as a symbol as he recalled to Anakin what his family had been through before coming into this galaxy. As Han finished the story, Anakin claimed to his father that he would one day become Luke's hand. He then went to sleep with a resolve as unwavering as ever within his heart. During the year 18 ABY, Anakin and his family would travel to the planet of Corellia on a planned vacation. Leia would hire a droll by the name of Abraham with the purpose of tutoring the children as well as act as a guide for the whole family. Upon arriving, the Solo family would embark on their first expedition where they would visit a major archaeological dig site. Whilst they were there, Anakin and his siblings were separated from the rest of the party due to Anakin stopping to investigate a strange feeling he had sensed through the Force. Anakin had tracked this sense while being closely followed by Jacen and Jaina. This would lead all three of them into what would be known as Corellia's planetary repulsor, one of 5, each located on an inhabited planet within the Corellian system. Once they returned, the Solo children would go on to tell their parents everything they had discovered within the tunnel. The Solo family would spend several days on Corellia. They would tour the planet's main continent and even relocate their lodgings to Corona House, also known as the Coronet House, which was the historical residence of Corellia's chief executive. This relocation was done so that Leia could participate in the trade summit that was soon to be held. On the first night of that summit, though, the 3 children had overheard a conversation between their parents, Mara Jade, and Governor General Micah Berlecto. All 3 of the Solo kids had learned of a Starbuster plot which involved the destruction of entire star systems. Anakin, Jacen, and Jaina were then confined to Corona House, along with Chewbacca, Abraham, and his astromech droid Q9X2, while Han and Leia left to find the Governor General, looking to advise him on how to deal with the growing crisis, though that crisis had soon erupted to the point of no return. The Solo children would witness dozens of enclaves within Coronet City burned to the ground. Many people have been killed in what would be known as the first stages of the Corellian insurrection. Corona House itself would soon come under fire as well, leading the children along with their companions to flee on the Millennium Falcon. Once they had fled the city, it was soon discovered that the Falcon's hyperdrive had been damaged during the escape, and so a decision was made to visit Abraham's aunt Marka, who was the Duchess of the planet of Draal. Once they had arrived, Anakin, Jacen, and Jaina told the Duchess of their experience at the archaeological dig site, the mysterious installation that they had found there, and the Starbuster plot that they also had overheard. All connected. Marka would bring the Solo children to the approximate location of Draal's planetary repulsor. Anakin was able to find the repulsor using the Force. He had made his way inside. When he did, he found some hidden control panels that were connected to the parts of the repulsor. While everyone else was asleep, Anakin sneaked away and out of curiosity activated the repulsor. Though Anakin himself would be safe in one of the tunnels, the others were in grave danger of being killed by the energy of the activation. Luckily, they were all able to escape and get to safety by securing themselves within the Falcon. The repulsor's activation would set off a chain of events that would allow Anakin to later meet his father's cousin, Thurkan Sal Solo, who came as soon as he had heard that Drall's planetary repulsor had been activated. Unknown to the children and the rest of the party, though, Thurkan's plans involved the use of the repulsor for his own personal ends. Sal Solo, because of this, would end up imprisoning Anakin, Jason, and Jaina, along with the rest of their party. The lengths that Sal Solo would go for the sake of his end goals knew no limits. He would even attempt to use the children to blackmail Leia to convincing the New Republic to recognize Corellia's independence. However, there was one thing Thrakan did not account for, and that was the Solo children's growing power in the Force. During their imprisonment, Anakin had discovered that he could walk in between the force fields that kept them from their freedom using the Force. He would teach Jason and Jaina, and who would soon follow suit and pass in between the force fields, meeting Anakin on the other side. However, the rest of their party could not get out, though they would soon be freed afterwards. The children made their way towards the Falcon, along with Q9X2, and would take off in it. Thrakan would attempt to hunt down the Solo children, however he was unsuccessful given the children's resourcefulness. It was Jason's piloting, Jaina's gunnery skills, and Anakin's use of the deflector shields that had saved their lives. The Solo children would soon be rescued by a New Republic Bakuran vessel known as the Intruder. There, Anakin, Jason, and Jaina would reunite with their parents, though it would be a short-lived reunion, as Han and Leia would soon leave to volunteer to aid the Bakuran fleet in its confrontation with the Sicorian Triad forces that were established at Centerpoint Station. The events that had transpired with Drall's repulsor would soon lead the children right back to the situation they had fled from in order to aid in the Centerpoint crisis. Centerpoint Station was an ancient structure rumored to have been created over 100,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. Constructed by the Thurut Hive of the Killik race, Centerpoint was capable of moving entire planets with its overpowered tractor beams, some being moved through hyperspace. The station itself was one of the oldest artifacts known to this era in galactic history, and the most dangerous within the wrong hands. In this instance it was, and their intention was to destroy. Centerpoint had been aimed towards a star called Bovo Yagin. The Bakuran technicians hit a wall with the repulsor and had no way of activating it in order to intercept Centerpoint's beam. The Solo children had returned to Drall, where Anakin immediately got to work with the Bakuran technicians in order to find a way to stop Centerpoint's beam. It was later discovered, though, that the reason no one could get the repulsor to work was because the repulsor itself would actually respond only to Anakin. Because of this, Anakin was the only one who could fire it. Soon, Centerpoint's beam would fire itself, which provoked Anakin to use the Force to aim the repulsor at Centerpoint's beam of energy, stopping its blast from obliterating the star system, saving billions of lives in the process. Even before growing into the Jedi Knight he was destined to be, Anakin Solo was already a hero to an entire star system. The Solo children would also spend some time on Kashyyyk along with Chewbacca. Soon after this, the Pelion-Gavrisum Treaty signing would take place, in which the 3 Solo children would be in attendance. The Pelion-Gavrisum Treaty marked the formal end of the decades-long war between the New Republic and the Imperial Remnant. And soon after the signing, they would stand together for a far more personal milestone: the wedding of Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade. For the first time in a long time, it felt like peace might finally be within reach. At just 11 years old, Anakin would be part of the first group of younger students sent to train at the Jedi Praxium at Yavin 4, founded by his uncle Luke. It was there where he met Tahiri Vela, a young orphan from Tatooine. The two quickly became inseparable, their bond deepened by a shared mystery. Anakin and Tahiri began having the same dream, one that felt less like a fantasy and more like destiny. This vision would lead the pair to the Golden Globe, an ancient spherical device created by the ancient Jedi turned Sith Lord Exar Kun in order for him to rule over the Massassi on Yavin 4 over 3,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. They would also find a creature near the Golden Globe. The cat-like creature revealed itself to be a Jedi Master by the name of Ygritte, a survivor of the Emperor's Purge, who had taken it upon himself to guard the Golden Globe until a pair of young Jedi students, strong in the Force, could break the spell of the Golden Globe. Ygritte had explained that the Golden Globe kept the souls of the ancient Massassi trapped within the sphere. He would also go on to explain to them that the souls could only be freed by children who were Force sensitive. Before they were able to free the trapped souls, Anakin would accompany Tahiri back to her home planet of Tatooine. Traveling together alongside the New Jedi Order's historian Tion Solusar, Tahiri would return to the planet to fulfill a promise she had made, as well as to find out more information about her history. Upon arriving, she was met by Slyvan, the Tusken Raider who had adopted her when she was younger after the death of her parents. But their visit would soon be met with an immense pressure placed upon Tahiri. If the pair were to leave Tatooine, the Tusken Raider tribe would kill Slyvan unless Tahiri agreed to undertake a dangerous trek across the Dune Sea and the Jundland Wastes. If Tahiri were to survive, the tribe would actually follow her adopted father and agree to even speak to Tahiri about her history. Anakin and Tahiri would choose to attempt the week-long trek together without any food or water. Before they left though, Slyvan would go on to tell Tahiri more about her parents. The harsh Tatooine desert would not be at all kind to the children, throwing many perils along their way. They would evade dangers such as the Sarlacc pit and even an actual krayt dragon, a journey very few could even attempt. However, the two would make their way back to the tribe, relying solely on the Force. After the horrendous journey, the two, along with Tion, would return to Yavin 4 in order to tend to their injuries suffered during the weeks-long trip. Once their injuries were completely healed, Anakin Solo and Tahiri Vela did not waste time and went back to the Golden Globe in order to fulfill the destiny that Ygritte had informed them about. Anakin and Tahiri would make their way back to the palace of the Woolamander, where they had initially discovered the Golden Globe. Together, they were able to weaken the force field just enough for Anakin to slip through. Once within the sphere, Anakin was able to get the Massassi children to join hands and together push outwards beyond the field. Together, they would shatter the Golden Globe. The freed souls were able to escape their enclosure. The trapped children thanked the young Jedi before disappearing entirely. Anakin and Tahiri would later return to the Great Temple, where Luke had been waiting for them, already been made aware of the Golden Globe by Master Ygritte. Despite all of his heroic deeds, the young Jedi trainee still struggled with troubling visions of becoming a Dark Jedi, haunted by the legacy of his grandfather. Seeking answers, Anakin would travel with Tahiri and Ygritte to the Darkside Cave on Dagobah, where he confronted visions of two possible futures, one consumed by the darkness and one guided by the light. The experience taught him that his destiny would be determined not by his heritage, but by the choices he made. Soon after, Anakin joined a mission to Bast Castle on Vijun to recover Obi-Wan Kenobi's lost lightsaber. There, he demonstrated his growing courage and ingenuity by overcoming deadly traps and helping recover both the lightsaber and the valuable holocron from the mysterious con artist Orlok. And when Orlok later lured the aspiring Jedi Older Loket to Exis Station, Anakin once again proved himself in battle. Alongside Tahiri, Tion, and Ikrit, he rescued Older and exposed Orlok's fraudulent claims of having Force powers. In the climactic confrontation, Anakin wielded Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber to disable Orlok's technology and bring the conflict to an end. As he matured, Anakin also assisted his siblings in stopping the Second Imperium's efforts to recruit Dark Jedi and helped rebuild Luke Skywalker's Jedi Paraxium after its attack. By the year 24 ABY, his achievements earned him a promotion to Jedi Apprentice, and he, along with his brother Jason, were chosen to continue their training directly under Luke, marking this a major step in Anakin's journey towards becoming one of the new Jedi Order's most promising young heroes. Anakin's greatest trial as a Jedi came in the year 25 ABY, with the start of the Yuuzhan Vong War. Arriving from a different galaxy after traveling the intergalactic void, these extragalactic invaders launched a massive assault on the known galaxy, determined to claim it as their own. While all other sentient beings of the known galaxy are touched by the Force in some way, the Yuuzhan Vong existed outside of it, which dumbfounded the first Jedi who encountered them, as all living beings possessed a Force signature of some kind. This would challenge the Jedi's farsight, as now they had to understand an enemy they could not sense, while also trying to understand the motives behind the invasion. At the very start of the war, Anakin found himself traveling with his father and Chewbacca to the world of Serpendal in order to pick up a shipment for Lando Calrissian. While on the planet, though, they had discovered that Serpendal's moon was moving closer towards the system in a collision course. Unbeknownst to them, this was a Yuuzhan Vong technique that allowed for the use of a gravity-manipulating creature known as a Davin Basel to pull the moon from its orbit and into the planet. Han, Chewie, and Anakin got to work on evacuating as many of the planet's inhabitants as the Falcon would allow. Uncharted gusts of wind started to run rampant as the moon got closer to Serpendal. One of these gusts of wind knocked Anakin back, sending him a few meters away from the Falcon, forcing Chewbacca to rush to save him. Chewie was able to pull Anakin to safety aboard the Falcon, but another blast of wind sent the Wookiee out of reach. Anakin rushed to the Falcon's controls in order to hover as close to Chewie as possible so that Han could pull him to the ramp. However, the moon was set to collide with Serpendal at any moment, with conditions getting worse by the second. As he piloted the Falcon, he realized it was too late to save Chewbacca. Tearfully, Anakin pulled away from the planet as Chewie remained behind, roaring defiantly as the moon struck the planet. The loss would shatter Han into a million pieces, and he would struggle with grief and anger the following months, going so far as to blame Anakin for the decision to leave without him, which affected Anakin even more than he already was. In the aftermath of Serpendal, Anakin threw himself deeper in the fight against the Yuuzhan Vong, determined that no one would ever die for him ever again. The young Solo began developing new Jedi tactics against the Vong. He would go on to rediscover a lost Force practice known as battle meditation during the Battle of Dubrillion, and even initiated another technique known as the Force Meld, where he and the twins united their minds through the Force to perfectly coordinate in battle. Anakin would also go on to design the first prototypes for the Yuuzhan Vong hunter droids manufactured by Lando Calrissian, as well as a computer program which kept track of the data usage found in the library in order to facilitate other Jedi missions against the Vong. He would go on to participate in many notable conflicts, such as the Battle of the Brilliant, the Battle of Dantooine, and the Battle of Ithor. 2 years into the war, Anakin Solo's heroic actions had led many New Republic citizens to view him as a galactic hero, with him serving as the freshest face of the new Jedi Order, much like his grandfather had been during the Clone Wars. There would even be whispers that Solo could one day take his uncle's spot as the most powerful Jedi of the new Jedi Order. But the time would come where Solo would undertake his most important mission yet. Anakin would be assigned the role of commander for the Myrick Jedi Strike Team, a specialized group of young Jedi Knights tasked with the single purpose of eliminating the Queen template of the genetically engineered creature known as the Voxen. The Voxen were specifically designed by the Yuuzhan Vong to hunt Jedi using the very thing that the Vong themselves could not feel: the Force. Realizing this monster could turn the tide of the war, they tracked down the Voxen Queen to a massive Yuuzhan Vong world ship referred to as Banu Ras, which would orbit over the planet of Myrick. Anakin Solo's Jedi Strike Team would consist of himself, his siblings, Tahiri, and many other talented Jedi. Eliminate the Voxen and the threat to the galaxy ends. A simple mission in concept, though a deadly mission in reality. Everything would go terribly wrong. The team would wage an over 30-hour campaign that no other beings could ever attempt. They would be swarmed with endless waves of Yuuzhan Vong soldiers as well as entire packs of Voxen. The Jedi Knight Anakin Solo held the line so that the rest of the team could complete the mission, taking wounds that no man could survive. During the battle, Anakin would give himself to the Force, momentarily fighting off the pain of his injuries, taking out hordes of Yuuzhan Vong soldiers by himself. Anakin would pull his strength not from anger or hatred for the Vong, but from the love of his family and friends, surrendering entirely to the boundless, unfiltered current of the Force. Unfortunately, channeling such power would have resulting consequences for the already fatally wounded Anakin. Anakin Solo would end up passing away in Jaina's arms, his last moments spent making sure his friends did not suffer his own fate, sacrificing himself to bring an end to the conflict of the Yuuzhan Vong War. Jaina fell apart, and for the moment the dark side had its hooks into her. Jacen Solo was forced to step up and lead the survivors, barely being able to process his own loss. His baby brother was gone, and there would be no time to grieve because the task was not yet complete. Jacen would end up destroying the Voxen Queen. However, he himself would be captured by the Yuuzhan Vong during the resulting chaos. Han and Leia lost 2 sons that very day. Anakin's lightsaber would go on to be used by the Jedi Ganner Rhytosode in a final stand against a horde of Yuuzhan Vong within the Well of the World Brain on a conquered Coruscant. The lightsaber would also be wielded by Luke during his encounter with Supreme Overlord Shimra. Jacen Solo would eventually return to the conflict, becoming one with the Force and more attuned than he had been ever before, with the Vong eventually being driven back to the unknown regions. Anakin's funeral would be held on the planet of Hapes. His body was surrounded by his friends and family as well as the surviving members of the strike team, the very people he had fought very hard to save. Though Anakin Solo's legacy would be one of nobility and selflessness, his death would spark a profound change in those closest to him, and his own legacy would unfortunately be twisted to serve evil. Jacen was deeply affected by his little brother's death, and this would play a key role in his seduction to the dark side and his transformation into the Sith Lord Darth Caedus. He would go as far as to name his personal Star Destroyer after Anakin, to much of the protest of his family that would eventually disown him due to his actions as Caedus. Jaina Solo would embrace her destiny and the title bestowed upon her by Luke as Sword of the Jedi, going on to defeat her twin brother, putting an end to his reign and the conflict that had resulted from it. Tahiri would suffer Anakin's loss terribly, and would commit terrible acts in the name of Caedus during his reign, being manipulated by him with promises of reuniting with Anakin through a practice Jacen had learned known as flow walking, which allowed the user to use the Force to walk through the flow of time, witnessing past events as well as future ones to an extent. Despite this, Anakin Solo would still go on to be remembered as a true knight and guardian of the galaxy, undeniably strong with an unwavering determination to save others. In the year 43 ABY, while investigating the cause of Jacen Solo's fall to the dark side, Luke and his son Ben Skywalker would encounter Anakin's spirit within a region known as the Lake of Apparitions. Luke and Ben would go on to tell him that no Jedi since his death has been as strong as him. Anakin's response was to tell Ben not to let other Jedi grow dependent on him, by telling him the following: "The Order can't wait for a great Jedi Knight to lead it. That's what everyone thought I was, and when I died, too much died with me. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't let anyone push you into that. Every Jedi has to be his own light, because the light shouldn't go out when one Jedi dies." He then bid his family one final goodbye before disappearing into the Force. Hey everyone, to those who have made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you so much for those who have supported this channel up until this point, and to those who have waited. And I also want to apologize to those who have waited this long for the video. I know that this this entire disappearance that I ended up taking from this channel, it wasn't as intended. I did have to take a step back in order to figure some stuff out in my own personal life, and I just wanted to be as transparent as possible up until what I can share. And well, I'm rambling on, but I just wanted to say thank you so much, and I'm very sorry you had to wait up until this point. Even though I'm not fully back, I do want to continue bringing out content to you guys, because I do love Star Wars very much, and I do love talking about the EU as a whole. And not only that, I also want to interact more with you guys going forward. And yeah, I'm rambling on once again, but I just want to say thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time. May the Force be with you.